So I wanted to talk about sort of nihilism, like this sort of spiritual nihilism, or maybe spiritual pessimism. Basically, as you get into mysticism, especially once you start like remembering past lives a little bit, and not everyone does this. I think it's a fair minority of the New Age people will maybe be able to remember past lives. I haven't heard of it that often. um, you just get to the point where like you've done everything before and you remember how it felt, and you remember things, so it makes everything feel like repetitive and kind of meaningless. And that's sort of why once you come to this point, and people realize that philosophically through Buddhism, that like we're just going through the same cycle over and over and over. Why do it? I feel Hinduism, like Buddhism, I feel I haven't read a ton into Buddhism, but it's talking about like sort of what's ultimate, that we're here and it just keeps going around and around, and there just keeps being more activity and it's not ultimate. You might as well merge with what is ultimate, and there's no point to sticking around. I don't think that's true, but I think that Buddhism in a way is very. It is nihilistic. You're literally trying to annihilate yourself, your own what is it, individuality. And some paths of Buddhism don't do this. It's like apparently some try and build the energy body in a way that you can like remember your past lives and things like that. Probably I did something like that, but a lot of these Eastern practices do similar things, or magical practices in general. There's a lot of similarities between ceremonial magic and like Tantra from the East. Perhaps Western magic even came from Tantra. Probably it did. Or maybe they both came separately from Egypt. It's really not easy to say on some of these things. And I don't know the whole lore of it. But anyways, Hinduism is a little bit more like there's a story to it, and eventually you find liberation. But those who are most devoted to Krishna will stay in the world and do some job here before they find liberation. And liberation doesn't erase who you are, but you just go on to some higher reality. The thing is, I've peeked into, what higher realities look like. And honestly, they look kind of boring. Like, in Christianity, you kind of imagine you die, you become an angel, and you just sit up on a cloud in heaven. Now, supposedly the fact that we become angels after we die is like bad theology, but I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of things that can happen. I find it really curious in Christianity that, or in Islam or any of the Abrahamic faiths, that we die and we are just, are done. We're here one time, and if we didn't have the chance to hear, to know God, then we're fucked. We're absolutely fucked. So, in a weird way, I think some of this spiritual nihilism is actually really, really encouraging, because, if we only have one chance to be here, like, in this lifetime, I have some baggage, and it's not clear whether which of the baggage is helpful and what isn't. Like, I have some psychological stuff. I have, I came from somewhere. I'm not just a disembodied intelligence that has ultimate say as to whether Christianity is correct or Islam is correct. I don't have all the possible information. So it's really And I think this is kind of an interesting picture of how sort of the divine quest, which can pop up in religion, that through religion, this thing I'm doing in this lifetime, or you're doing in your lifetime, or whatever, this is the divine thing that's going to elevate, that's God's will, that's ultimate, that is worthy of putting one's life force into. I think that's a problem, I don't know that we are actually beholden to a higher power and expected to do work of a higher power. I think the work we intend to do in a lifetime is just our intention to do the work. It's us. We want something. A part of us is situated sort of above the melee of reality, and there's some spiritual goal. Even the most mundane person, practically, I think, will have such goals. Not to such an extent, but yeah. But I think it's really comforting that nothing really matters, because things could go any way, even the best can fail. Yeah, the best laid plans and whatnot. And if things fail, then I guess just do something else. I think some things are fixed in fate and whatnot, but I think there is an element of fate. I think that the world itself wants things to happen. The world also has an intelligence and is trying to make things happen a certain way, and it's very hard as an individual to go against it. That's like we produce, like Maya, like ego, we produce our reality around us, but also the world itself is producing its own reality, which is mostly going to be stronger than what we can do. But the world is also receptive to our ideas about reality, so there's kind of a back and forth of it. But see, once you understand the mechanics of all this stuff, you don't feel so much like, oh, something's meant for me. Oh, you realize it's a machine, and that there's like, I'm going to say a program. There's a script that we all want, like, in some deep way, actually desire to follow. Because if that wasn't the case, if everything was truly fate, why would the world be as it is now? That means that, like, fate makes suffering completely meaningless, or pain or anything. It also makes success meaningless. If everything's predetermined, then really existence is entirely meaningless. It's a meaningless, vacuous play of nothing. So, and I think that there's cycles to things and whatnot. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that on the ultimate scale, I think things are far less. Maybe things aren't truly meaningless as they actually in reality, but they're far less meaningful than they're far more malleable, maybe, and that is a little bit unsettling to realize that you have a lot of power actually to control what the meaning of things are, how things will go, because in a mundane way, like a mundane person will think that they have power over everything. And then you come to the point where you realize, like through magic, that a lot of things are actually predetermined, and there's cycles and whatnot. I think that's really comforting. And then you get to a point, like, when you really become, like, let's say, a magician. When you really get to the point where you realize, oh, I can just think about something for a while, and make it happen in a way. And there's even when you do magic, it even becomes disappointing sometimes. Sometimes you do magic and it doesn't do what you wanted it to do, or in a reasonable time frame, and then you start to realize why later. And then it's like, okay, you're never going to understand everything, but actually you have a lot of power over your reality that other people just aren't going to have. And it's so being a magician can be kind of depressing. And I think about, there's a verse in the book of Proverbs, or maybe it's Ecclesiastes, where it says, he who increases in wisdom increases in sorrow. And I think this is what that meant, that as one comes into their power as a magician, you're not really on the same page as other people. In any time period, it's going to be totally obtuse to the average person that, material resources are kind of just incidental to mental resources or spiritual resources. So, I'm obsessed with Shiva, and I know that in a lot of ways, there's a lot of, I've gone down a certain path that's a little bit individualistic. Probably I could have worshipped something else and had more conventional resources, right? I mean, I would worship Varuna and the money would just come right in, It would just, I'd pray to Varuna and I'd just find money, like, randomly. But, once you realize how malleable reality really is, it's, you find yourself wondering, like, but why should I change reality? At what point is it honest or dishonest? Things like that. So this is the way that there's this very existential, like, dread, existential struggle that comes with magic, because it's a different way of interacting with reality, and I think it's a bit hard, and it takes time to get used to.